All right, joining us now is Democratic Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island. He is on the Judiciary Committee, and he's the chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, and he has visited the U.S.-Mexico border multiple times. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good to see you. My pleasure.
The president was having trouble making a clear justification for why he declared this national emergency. He did mention Ann Coulter, he mentioned Rush Limbaugh, he mentioned Sean Hannity, but in the end, he may be diverting funds that would otherwise be used for legitimate military purposes. I want to just play for you quickly what Donald Trump said about why he would do that.
We had certain funds that are being used at the discretion of generals, at the discretion of the military. Some of them haven't been allocated yet, and some of the generals think that this is more important. I was speaking to a couple of them. They think this is far more important than what they were going to use it for. I said, what were you going to use it for? And I won't go into details, but didn't sound too important to me.
Congressman, that's just weird. You've been down to the border. I haven't spoken to any generals who have suggested that the things that they're doing with their money would be less useful, than spending it on a border wall. But this is F-35 training. This is real construction work at bases. This is kind of hard to believe what the president just said.
Yeah, I mean, the president is suggesting he's going to take money from critical military construction and counter-narcotics work. I mean, it's kind of ironic when he's claiming he needs to build a wall for both those purposes. But look, there is no emergency at the border. I've been there 2 times in the last year. The border crossings, illegal border crossings, are down to a 40-year low. His own intelligence community, when they do the world threat assessment that identifies the greatest threats to the United States, didn't even reference the southern border and certainly never said there was an emergency. So there is no emergency at the border. And the president's statutory authorization that he's referring to relates to military construction to support the armed forces, which is clearly not immigration related. So there's no basis for this. This is the president attempting to circumvent the will of the American people as reflected through decisions in Congress. This is really disrespectful to the rule of law, to the separation of powers between the branches of government. And we have a democracy. The president, just because he's frustrated that he didn't get what he wants, isn't allowed to just circumvent the democratic process. He's not an imperial king where he can just issue an edict. We have a functioning democracy, and he failed to convince the Congress and the American people of the necessity of this wall, and he just can't do what he's purporting or proposing to do.
The president trying to get $8 billion for this. This is more than the $5.7 billion he was asking for in the first place. But the 5.7, as we know, was a red herring to start with, because even the most conservative estimates about the wall that the president wants to build was in the 20 to 25. There are estimates that are close to double that. But at that point, you, as representatives, have to deal with the fact that $8 billion is a lot of money. $8 billion for technology that is not deemed by the experts to say the thing that is going to keep our border more secure is a waste of American money. And as Nancy Pelosi said, this is one way or the other taxpayer money.
No, absolutely. Look, we have a responsibility to make certain that we secure the border in this country, but we need to do it in a way that actually achieves the objective, using the best technology, doing cargo inspections, using drones, using satellites, additional personnel, the things that the experts say will actually work, rather than sort of monument to the Trump campaign promise that I remind your viewers he said that Mexico was going to pay for. It's ineffective. It's wasteful. It will not achieve the objective he claims it will. And that's why a bipartisan group of Congress negotiated a resolution of this issue and passed it overwhelmingly, because we settled on smart, tough, effective border security and not this campaign promise that the president made.
Congressman, the chairman of your committee, Jerry Nadler, has sent this letter to the president saying, make people who were involved in this decision available because you're going to investigate. On what basis are you going to investigate? What are you looking for?
Well, we're looking for the president to come forward and the president's team to make clear what is the basis of this determination. How do they come to the conclusion that there was a national emergency, which of course there is not? What advice he got with respect to whether or not that was appropriate? What authority he thinks he has to reallocate funds? We want to understand kind of how the president came to this decision, what influenced his ultimate decision to do this, because what we really believe is this part, as he mentioned in the press conference, this is about a campaign. This is about keeping this issue alive so that he can claim he's fighting to secure the border and nobody else will do it and no one else wants to get it done but him. And he's going to continue with this narrative. He wants this fight because he thinks it's politically advantageous. But it's dangerous to allow the President of the United States to circumvent the will of Congress, the rule of law in this country, the separation of powers, and just decide that he thinks this is important, this policy disagreement, and he's going to go ahead without congressional authorization, undermines rule of law in this country, undermines our democracy, and the Judiciary Committee is going to have a full investigation of this so that we can let the American people see what's really happened here.
Congressman, thank you for joining me tonight. Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island.